Thank you so much for having me today, this afternoon, and allowing me to share the plans for Baton Rouge Bike Share, and also just kind of some of the impacts that we've seen around the country when communities have implemented bike share systems. I want to pause, though, and say I did leave my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, 2 weeks after the flood and moved to Baton Rouge. I was influenced by a number of stakeholders that came to Birmingham to see what we had accomplished there. And I will say I'm here today because of the Baton Rouge Area Foundation. They're truly a great organization in Baton Rouge, and I wanted to take a minute to just thank them for me being here. I work out of their office, but how impactful they really are. I've worked with many community foundations across the country launching bike share systems because they typically are a catalyst for a bike share, and y'all have a very impressive, or I should say we now, have a very impressive foundation here that my counterparts in Birmingham actually have commented and said, you were going to work with BRAF? And they look to BRAF in many ways as a leader in the community foundation circles. So I wanted to just stop and say that among all of you, because I know you know who BRAF is and the impacts that they make, as well as Rotary in the community. So I wanted to make sure you were all aware of my connection with them, and they have been instrumental among many other stakeholders for a bike share coming to Baton Rouge. So what is bike share? For any of you that may have not seen this around the country or been able to experience it, really I shouldn't just say country, but across the world. It is an automated self-service bike sharing system, very similar to what you see in that picture there, where it's meant for short one-way trips. It's usually membership based. Through an app or through a key fob that you get in the mail, you can access the system and people can walk up and take a bike, or you can be part of this annual membership network. And there's a dense network of these stations that are conveniently located throughout the community. So you can take a bike, go to grab your coffee, go to your meeting, whatever you would like to do, or use it just for recreation. And then you do not have to bring it back to the station you got it from. You can leave it at that next station and you're done with that trip. And you possibly, when you come out from that coffee, may grab another bike. But that's why the density of these stations are really important. And there's been an evolution in bike share, in the bike share industry. And I'll talk to you about what's coming to Louisiana, because frankly, we're getting some of the most state-of-the-art, newest bike share equipment. How much does it cost? Typically, I get this question a lot. It varies from community to community. But an annual membership is typically $75, and a daily pass for a tourist or somebody just walking up is $6. So it's a very affordable, fun option. And there are additional user fees. So if you keep the bike longer than a 30 or 45-minute period, you may incur some additional costs. But if you dock the bike, then you don't get those user fees. Or you can dock the bike, take it right back out, keep moving. What that does is encourages people to put the bikes back into the system and not take it up to their hotel, their loft, into their work. And then it's the first lucky people that get a bike for the day, and it's not accessible and truly a transportation option for others. So you swipe your membership card, you grab a bike, and you return the bike back to any station you'd like when you're done. That's the idea behind it. And it's, again, a very affordable option in the density of stations. I wanted to talk about why communities are doing this. Now that you understand what bike share is, the greater impacts. We're not just talking about bicycles, even though I think bicycles are great and cool. That is a vehicle for something greater when it comes to the community. So the economic competitiveness and impacts really of a bike share system when they're launched in a community, more than 54% of millennials said they'd move to another city that had better transportation options. That's not a percentage that we should ignore. When we're talking about recruitment and retention for large employers, then we're talking about amenities like bike share that people and individuals are looking for when they're looking for a community to set roots in. not only millennials are saying they like bike share and transportation options, but this is actually where baby boomers and millennials align. They don't align on a lot of things, but when it comes to outdoor active living, there's been a lot of studies saying that is one of the areas where millennials and baby boomers align. We like bike paths, we want outdoor activities, walking trails, things of that nature. So bike share is just another tool in that toolkit to not only get millennials, but baby boomers active and moving and enjoying those outdoor really amenities that we're creating and enjoying the city, and then that turns into vibrancy. And we all know vibrancy translates into more businesses, more people, more movement. And then I'll also say, just from the small business sector, the University of Minnesota did a study that more than $150,000 was spent in local restaurants and retailers by their Nice Ride Minnesota bike share users. And this is not a phenomenon that just happened in Minnesota. This has happened across the country. There's also been additional studies where it shows you that cyclists actually spend more money per month in a time period than someone who arrives by car at small and local businesses. So we're not only helping with the recruitment and retention with these types of amenities, but also from the small business level, bike share can really impact on the streets and what's going on, particularly in the downtown growing area. And then that moves us into, I got a little happy there, into the entertainment and residential sector growth that we're seeing in Baton Rouge. There's been, and some of these stats are from 2015, but more than $122 million in residential investment since 2010, and that's growing in downtown. I know we have the DDD here, so I got these stats from you all, so no need to check my stats. But there's growing residential in the downtown area, growing businesses. I know we're seeing several hotels pop up as well. More bike infrastructure is coming. More of the riverboats are coming. So all of these things, this entertainment and residential sector growth that we're seeing in Baton Rouge, and many cities in the South are seeing actually, this is leading to needing more transportation options to get around to all of these things that we're investing in. So transportation options and connectivity, obviously it's great for first and last mile. So as we potentially aren't looking to expand transit routes, or as we are, this is a great supplement for that. For folks that are transit dependent or do not have a vehicle, this is a great affordable option for them to utilize in conjunction with transit. CATS is a huge supporter of what we're doing, and we've been working with them. But also with Baton Rouge City Stats in 2016, people were surveyed. How would they use the bike share system? And I think that these numbers are really impressive, that I think 97% of people said they would use bike share for recreation and exercise. I think that is a stat that seems familiar, and everyone nods their head usually at the 97%. But 55% said they would run errands, and 55% said they would ride a bike share to work. So those stats are higher, I think, than what most people thought when they were just thinking about the concept of bike share. So we will see this happen. And then it speaks to the health and wellness. Louisiana, unfortunately, is known for being one of the most obese states in the country. I think it's our Southern culture, really, that does it. But we need more active options out there. And so what this does is allows people to not feel like they're exercising, but getting a nice bike ride in. And we actually, from the system, can pull stats. So we know how many checkouts, how many miles were ridden, how many calories were burned, how many emissions reduced. All of this data is open and available to anyone that wants to use it. So whether it's a hospital looking for a grant and they want to include this information, or a health department, we can provide this information at any time. Furthermore, I just want to stop and say that every bike has GPS on them, so not only for security purposes, we know where they are real live time. It's a question I get all the time. The bikes will not just disappear the day after we launch. I promise this has been done in larger cities, but that's a concern that surfaces every time. But also, because of that, we know where people are riding. So that data is available to the city parish, to the planning commission, to anyone else, the DOTD, anyone that's looking at where our city is riding, where are people going. So as we're talking about resurfacing or more bike lanes or more transit routes, we now are making those decisions much more informed than we were before. This is data that these municipalities and these planning commissions, they never had before from a cyclist. So this is giving a wealth of data and knowledge that did not exist. that will be beneficial in many other realms than just bike share. So this is what you may be used to seeing. This is actually DC's system. They were the first bike share system in North America. And this is great, but takes up a lot of infrastructure. And the bikes are not what we call smart bikes. All of the technology lives in that stationary kiosk right there that the bike is docked in. What you'll be seeing rolling out in New Orleans later this year is something called social bicycles, where all of the technologies move to the bike. And now those docking stations don't have any technology. We can take up less infrastructure this way, but you as the user can also see what you're riding, what are your routes you're taking. So you can go to the app or on the component that lives on the bike, you can see now what you're doing. So this is a smart bike. This is a wave that's hit the U.S. and several cities have launched this, but I believe this is what you will see in Baton Rouge as well, because interoperability between New Orleans and Baton Rouge is actually one of our primary things that we're looking for. So where your membership works in no matter which community. I'm also working with St. Tammany Parish, so that would also be included. So this is one of their newer smart bikes that you'll see being rolled out. The bikes are customized via colors, so they could be different colors, branding, because we do have corporate sponsorships that help fund this long term. And so it might look a little different, but you can see the idea of the bike. So our commitment ultimately is to connect people, regardless of socioeconomic status, to places and communities in Baton Rouge with a high-performing, accessible, and sustainable transportation alternative that promotes health, and I should put tourism in there, and economic vitality. Sounds like a tall order. I've seen this happen across the country over and over and over again, particularly in the Southeast where I focus, and this can be and will be delivered in Baton Rouge. Just some quick stats. Typically, the early adopters of bike share are Caucasian male, 25 to 34, with a secondary being 35 to 44. And educated employed. Those are the early adopters, but we have special outreach programs that are geared towards low-income women, people of color, seniors, etc. So you'll see safety classes and campaigns and certain other activities that we do to make sure that we're inclusive of the whole community. Everything else, so we have subsidized memberships for low-income individuals that will be rolled out in a programmatic manner. We will have education and safety components. A helmet program will be rolled out where we have a wonderful partner on that. And then I mentioned the theft and vandalism with the live GPS. We have graffiti-proof paint, etc. There's just a lot built into the system already to reduce that. And then the liability is maintained through a waiver that the user signs, but also through the operator. So we actually indemnify the city, the parish, and all of our corporate sponsors. So we've thought of everything. So Baton Rouge specifically, what's happening is a business and implementation plan between BRAF and Tool Design Group was completed. And that's what I'm implementing now. So a lot of due diligence has been done around Baton Rouge bike share, and a lot of experts have come in, and we believe that Baton Rouge is ready. It's projected to launch in early 2018, and that date's been pushed a little bit back, but bike share is very similar to building a building, and dates change and things happen. But we are able to be on the forefront of the bike share industry and some changes that are coming down the pipeline there. We'll have local full-time and part-time staff. We have fleet vehicles that rebalance the system to make sure there's not a station too empty or too full, and we do all of the fleet maintenance ourselves, so you are getting on a sound, maintained bike and having a good user experience. And interoperability with New Orleans, as I mentioned, and with multiple other cities that come on, and particularly in Louisiana. But if we choose the same provider as New Orleans, then it's actually interoperable with all of the systems across the country that they have. So this is the plan. 51 stations, 510 bikes in early 2018. The focus areas would be downtown LSU and Southern University, the areas in blue. Those black dots are not exactly where stations will be, so don't get too fixated on that. We still have to do the siting, but it is showing you kind of the density that we're proposing for those various areas. We may actually roll out with more than 510 bikes, so these are minimum numbers that I'm providing. Also, phase 2 is in yellow, moving to mid-city, and then the health district in phase 3. And in reality, those might be combined and expedited. where that's 800 bikes in Baton Rouge in a very short period of time. So we are actively talking about bike planning and infrastructure as well. A group of stakeholders just met prior to this meeting that it seemed like it was everyone and anyone that does anything that has to do with bike infrastructure was at the table, and there's a very active discussion and planning happening. So the things that I'm working on, just the fundraising, the procurement of the equipment, that probably is what you will see next from the city parish. We're working with them on that. The site planning, you'll see some branding and marketing rolling out. Then we go into operations. The system deploys, it opens up, it's a very fun day, and then it's available and accessible for everyone. So just what we have in store, if you want to see the bike share business and implementation plan that we're executing, it's at braf.org. Bike share. And then we have a Facebook page where we do try to provide updates as they come, whether they're industry, national updates, or really localized updates. Some press conferences you'll see along the way is once we select our equipment vendor, again, that's done through a procurement process with the city parish. The corporate sponsorship unveiling, where we unveil the bike. You can see who's going to be present on the bike, what color it is, and what's the C. In Birmingham, for example, it's Regions Bank and Blue Cross Blue Shield, so it's a sea of green and blue when you are in our service area. So there will be a sea of some colors here, and we do know that Blue Cross Blue Shield is behind this, and we thank them for their early support of this project, and they are known for supporting bike share across the country, really. So they're investing in Baton Rouge further. And then our launch event, when that takes place, there will be a launch parade where we have hundreds of bikes riding on a bike route, likely will be led by Mayor Broom and several other corporate stakeholders that made this happen. And there will be a ribbon cutting and big press event where it really garners the attention that it deserves, and the system will be turned on that afternoon. So it's a really exciting time. If I have time, I would like to show a quick video of the launch. This is the actual launch event in Birmingham. We have 400 bikes, 40 stations there, and this was about 200 bikes of all of our stakeholders. And you will see Mayor Bell putting on a helmet in the video. Oh, there's the music. This isn't the war part yet. So that's just a snapshot of what the launch can be and will be here. I will say it garnered a lot of attention and still has. Over 100,000 rides in the first year happened in Birmingham. So we're talking about Birmingham is a very comparable city to Baton Rouge. It is not known for being bike friendly. This was absolutely a catalyst for more biking infrastructure that has come since we launched, and more cycling. Again, you see a sea now of green and blue. Individuals that possibly haven't been on bikes in 20 years, and now they're back riding, and they're downtown, and they're exploring, and they're going to restaurants, and they're riding the parks, and they're doing things that they would possibly not have done. And Mayor Bell actually told me prior, I'm not riding a bike, I haven't been on a bike in forever. And then he got there and saw the line of bikes and all of the stakeholders, and he was like, give me a helmet, I need a helmet. And he rode. And he led the ride, and he did wonderfully, and he said, it's true, you really do never forget how to ride a bike. And he did text me 2 weeks later and said, I'm still sore. So we got him active, and it speaks to the impacts that it makes with people getting active again. And I'll just say this too. There's a city councilwoman named Sheila Tyson who was supportive of bike share in Birmingham, and passed everything that we needed passed through the city and all of that. But she admittedly just said, okay, great, sounds good, but didn't really understand bike share fully. She's one of the biggest champions of bike share now in Birmingham. And she's had 2 knee replacement surgeries. And biking, or the stationary bike, was part of her therapy. And so this now is allowing her to actually continue with that therapy, but exploring in a fun way. And she serves a really low-income area of Birmingham. And she has become one of the biggest champions for getting her citizens to become members, to be involved with this system, to educate them on how to use it, and then to, frankly, for individuals that are recovering from any kind of hip or knee surgery too, to saying you can do this is possible. So there are many just things that you don't even realize will be happening with bike share once it launches, the impacts that it truly makes. And so I know that this is an impact group, and so I wanted to make sure that you understood what this meant. The bike is the vehicle for a more vibrant, livable lifestyle, and that's really, truly what we're creating in Baton Rouge. Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone have a question? Lane? Yes, you do.
Does any of the strategic plan or anything allow for any kind of infrastructure change? Because there's just not a lot of bike lanes in Baton Rouge.
Well, I'll say this. Baton Rouge does have more bike lanes than most southern cities. It doesn't mean the work is done by any means, but if that gives you any indication of what's going on in the South right now. More and more people are looking at bike infrastructure, but with the work that Breck is doing, and that DDD is doing, and several other groups, yes, there's discussion for infrastructure. Bike share is absolutely a catalyst for more infrastructure. It's a chicken and an egg. Do we get the infrastructure and then bike share? Do we get bike share, then the infrastructure? And we always say if you wait, you're probably not going to have what you need for either. So bike share is that catalyst to move that forward. We just left, as I mentioned, a meeting specifically with DOTD, FHWA, DDD, City Parish, Bike Baton Rouge, all of the groups, Breck, all of the groups, and then some, all the groups you think should be at the table for this discussion. Both universities were there as well. This is the discussions we're having. We have to have a regional bike plan, and we've got to make sure the money is available. But without a bike plan, you cannot get federal dollars. My background is in the federal transportation world. So you have to have that plan. So this will be a catalyst, but all of those groups are coming together because there's a lot of great work being done in Baton Rouge. It's just kind of segmented. And so this will be hopefully bringing under one umbrella, and then we can start prioritizing and going after funding for those. But there, in the meantime, there's some great work being done with DDD, with Breck in particular, with mixed-use bike paths. And you always have the Levee Trail. I will say that's a fun ride.
But you can't get to the office.
That's true.
So I was thinking about getting a bike for my birthday, but maybe I'll go ahead and skip on that. My question was, so I think it's going to be bikes that it's like have gears that have
Yes.
like the brake handles.
Mhm.
It's not people have to roll backwards and.
Correct. Hand brakes, 8 gears, so it's just a turning of the knob that's right there on the handlebar. There's also a very aggressive bell. It's not really aggressive at all, but a bell on the left side. Also, the bikes have reflectors and lights, and while the bike is in use, the lights will continue to blink on the front and the back for 60 to 90 seconds, depending on which operator we go with. So as you're sitting at a light, because every lane is a bike lane, as you're sitting at a light, then you will still be blinking. So not just, we have the reflectors, but then additional lights on top of it. So there's a lot of safety features built in. Helmets are not required for use of the system, and if you're over the age of 12 in the state of Louisiana, you are not required to wear a helmet. And that's typical state laws, 16 usually, 12 here. So you're not required, but we are working with a community partner to be a helmet sponsor. So we will have helmets that we give away at events that we provide for our subsidized members because we do not want that to be a barrier of access. So we will be providing helmets through the program.